Children's online book festival. We're speaking to authors from all over the place and all sorts of interesting books, and we're doing it in partnership with the amazing Sue Atkins, TV's parenting coach, and her Sue Atkins book club. And we've got something different here, still in the storybook, still books for children, but something in terms of the story within the story, something different, something powerful, something moving here with regard to this book, Big H and Little H Dog. Written by Victoria Smith. So Victoria, welcome to our online book festival extravaganza, and just sort of introduce yourself and just give us a bit of a background to you, to the book, how you got to writing the book. Thank you.
Hello, thanks for having me. So Big H and Little H Dog came about a few years, actually, in terms of publishing it, as is often the case. You hear that somebody writes a story, it sits on their laptop for 2 or 3 years before anything is done with it. And that is exactly the case with Big H and Little H Dog. What happened was my nephew was diagnosed with a rare disease called Duchenne muscular dystrophy at the age of 5 in 2011. Which was obviously absolutely heartbreaking for the family. And my brother-in-law, Alex Smith, shortly after his diagnosis, set up a charity in his name, in Harrison's name, called Harrison's Fund, of which he is the CEO of the charity. He does incredible work. And one of the outstanding things he did was he actually took Harrison around on a full Ironman triathlon. I'm just trying to think, 2015 it was, which, you know, no mean feat. A child of 40 kilograms at the time, I think he was. And they built him all with amazing sponsors and, you know, partnerships with different companies. Built him custom built raft that Alex could pull him on, a custom buggy, which was partly where some of the ideas for my story for Big H and Little H Dog came from. He had a custom built buggy, and indeed, and there they are. Yeah, that's it. And I felt it was very important to include that in the book to really show, as you said, the story within the story. So it's the story. I don't know. I can't even tell you now where the idea. Well, obviously the idea for the story was very clear, but why I wrote it, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I've always written. I've written throughout my professional life. I've worked in education, developing qualification resources, course materials, you know, all the way through since graduating. And so I've always had a passion for writing, I guess. But the way I describe it, I've always written serious stuff. But I'm very much a child at heart. So I think, I don't know, I guess this whole thing of needing an outlet for your creativity. Perhaps that does come as you perhaps, you know, your children get a bit older, you've got a bit more freedom, a bit more time on your hands. And I just wrote it. It just happened. And I think part of that was because I wanted to help, I wanted to support. I'd done, for example, I'd done half marathons raising money for Harrison's Fund, for the charity. But there's only so much of that you can do. And often you feel like you're knocking on the same doors as well to raise money. So the story sat there. I attempted to get traditional publishers. It didn't work out because, as we know, it's a very small percentage of writers who actually, you know, do find an agent or get a deal. I looked into hybrid publishers at the time, so-called vanity publishers, dare I say. And I got 2 offers with hybrid publishers, but I was looking at something like £3,500 to get it published. So sort of forward wind 2 to 3 years. And my husband said, why don't you do something with your book? Why don't you just see if you can actually self-publish it? And this was from having no background whatsoever in, you know, publishing, marketing, all the rest of it. I very much shied away from social media. I was one of these people who I didn't have Instagram. I didn't go on Facebook. So the prospect of doing the whole shebang was quite a scary one, actually. But I went for it. And what I did, because again, it was going to cost a fair amount of money, I had to find an illustrator, and obviously the illustration process is probably the most expensive element of creating your own book, certainly an illustrated picture book. And I set up a Kickstarter campaign. I don't know if you've heard of those.
Yeah.
And I was successful, and we got the project funded, 100% funded, and what you see now is the product of a Kickstarter campaign. And whilst, you know, I kind of like to think of it as a project funded by generosity and kindness, funded by charity for charity, and that is exactly what we produce there with Big H and Little H Dog. So it feels good.
How much did you ask for? Just people watching this might be thinking with their own, you talked about books that sit on laptops for ages. I've always said books know when they're ready to be written. They know when they're ready to be read. You can sit them on, they can be on your shelf, like behind me for years, and then suddenly you think that is just the right time. But also they know when they're ready to be written, to be out there. So that's people watching this might have that and might wonder, well, how much does it cost to? So I mean, I love the Kickstarter idea. How much did you ask for?
So I think my target was quite modest. When I actually look at a number of Kickstarters now, they are certainly far more singing or dancing than the one I put together because I did it all myself, and at the time I had limited knowledge. And I think now doing one, if I did one now, I would approach it quite differently. But I think I was looking for a target of £1,500, and we made just over 1,600. And you have to hit your target. If you got to 1,400, you wouldn't get the funding.
Give it back.
Which would be devastating, wouldn't it, if you got that close? So yes, £1,500, and that was to pay for a print run so that I could obviously fulfil the Kickstarter pledges, as they're called, and obviously my illustrator and all of the formatting, the editing of it, and so on.
Yeah. And so the people who donated got a copy of the book. Is that how it worked? That's right. So you set up within your Kickstarter project, you set up a number of different pledge levels, which might be a PDF copy, for example, if somebody, to give a real spread of pledge amounts, say from £5 to £100 plus or more, which might be from a PDF copy of the book to an original illustration of the book, which is what we did. For my pledges, so and it worked well. It did work well. I mean, the big thing with Kickstarter is you can't do it as a charity project. So it's the pledges have to be in return for something. You're giving something back, obviously. It's a different. You have to go to Just Giving or something for that sort of charity-based sort of stuff. So no, it's good. It's a commercial venture, and rightly so. Even though it has a charitable aim, it's still a commercial venture. So that's right. I like the naivety with which you approach it. And naivety is great. Naivety gets you a long way. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'll go for it. If you knew what you were doing, none of us would do anything if we knew how hard things were. Absolutely, and this is it. And I think since I've seen now how professional some Kickstarters are, and I mean these are, multi-million pound, but huge companies are sort of setting up the Kickstarters, aren't they? And I looked at my little modest one, which was just me doing a little read aloud and showing some ideas of behind the book and the illustrations. Yeah. I feel incredibly humbled that we achieved the target. Yeah, no, nice one. You said it's Duchenne muscular dystrophy. What does that entail? What's that all about? I haven't heard. Yeah, so it's classed as a rare disease, and I have to say I don't prefer. I'm not a rare disease parent. I'm a rare disease auntie. So my insight of the disease is what I see of my nephew Harrison at family functions, and what I know of his experiences and what I've seen. So Harrison has basically it's a lack of a protein called dystrophin in the muscle. This is what so it's a genetic disorder ultimately, and the lack of dystrophin in the muscle basically results in the muscle breaking down over time and deteriorating over time. So a child starts off being able to walk. And functioning. I mean, not normally. There are early signs that there is a problem, more accident prone and so on. But a child will develop fairly normally up until about 3 to 4, at which point it becomes evident. And this was the case with Harrison. And particularly as a family, we noticed. I mean, one Christmas
his calf muscles were absolutely huge, very pronounced, and it made him look incredibly strong, ironically. He looked like an incredibly strong little boy, but the reverse was the case. And tragically, he got the diagnosis shortly after, in January, I think it was January 2011. And it's 100% fatal. There is no cure. It's absolutely tragic. 1 in 3,500 births are of children have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which so it is rare, but 1 in 3,500 children. It largely affects boys. Only 1% of girls have the disease. And ultimately, the reason it is fatal is that, your heart is a muscle, or you have your respiratory muscle. So generally, it's late teens into 20s that children are surviving at the moment. And largely they are in a wheelchair by the age of 12, which has been the case for Harrison.
So Harrison is how old now?
Harrison is 15 now, and he's 2 months younger than my eldest daughter. So, almost the same age as my eldest. So,
and how's he doing?
He's in a wheelchair. And, I mean, this is also the link with the book. You see that Harrison went from being independent to losing his dependence, in that he needed to be supported getting off the sofa, moving him onto a toilet and so on, and all those functional daily activities, to the point where he then needed a wheelchair because, he got bigger, so it's very hard to maneuver him. And actually, he went from a bog standard wheelchair, and I think his mum and dad organised a grant to get him a souped up wheelchair. And so this is the link with the story as well. You see, you've got little H dog, his muscles are weak, they deteriorate. And actually there's this revelation for him, because he's not cured, but he gets access to this wonderful set of souped up go faster wheels that give him a renewed sense of independence and, a real opportunity to experience life in a way that he hadn't been able to. And that very much mirrors what I've seen with Harrison, getting this wonderful off-road wheelchair, because I'll see pictures of him out in the woods and for a period of time before he got that wheelchair, that wouldn't have been possible.
So that leads us in nicely then. If you're going to read a little extract from the book, tell us a little bit more about the book itself and read a little bit, and then we'll talk again.
Yeah. So the book is called Big H and Little H Dog, and Big H is based on my brother-in-law, Alex, who is the CEO of Harrison's Fund, set up in Harrison's name. And Little H Dog is obviously meant to represent Harrison. And one of the reasons I chose a dog, you can see he's very characterized. He's got glasses on, and Harrison wears a lot of the time these big, thick, black, cool glasses. So we brought his character into his cartoon character. So that was the idea behind that. But my child, my eldest, and Harrison both loved the Super Vet. So that is another link to they always watched it when they were younger, not now, obviously they're too cool for that now, but yeah, they love the Super Vet. So that was another link with a dog, and a dog with poorly muscles. It would have been amazing if I'd been able to get the Super Vet on board to give an editorial review, but that didn't quite happen, unfortunately. So yeah, I'll read a little. It's halfway through the book. So hopefully it'll make some sense, but it is halfway through the book. So I'll just show you the illustration there.
That's doing a marathon.
That is him. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Going across Westminster Bridge by the look of it.
Indeed. So Big H did astounding things, like really, really, really long races, taking little H Dog with him every inch of the way. He spread the word from his local cafe to the Houses of Parliament next to Big Ben in London. He raised huge sums of money because lots of kind people wanted to help little H Dog get better too. And that is true, actually, is that Alex actually did used to work in his local cafe, and they had a charity pot there at the side for people to donate to. So
nice.
Big H spoke to lots of very important people, also known as VIPs. He went on TV to talk about little H Dog and even made a film about him. Little H-Dog knew he was a very much loved little pup. He knew he was super special. He knew there was still hope.
In rainbow colours.
Yeah. And then one day it happened. Big H got a call from the super vet, who is super clever at finding new ways to fix poorly animals. The super vet had seen Big H on TV talking about his little pup's poorly muscles, and he'd come up with a super duper plan to help him. Could the super vet give little H-Dog his running legs back? So there we go. I won't spoil the ending.
No.
It's very much a story within a story, because that actually all happened. It all happened. Yeah.
I know it's a really sad topic that you're focusing on, with an outcome that isn't going to be a happy ending.
Indeed.
But it's a really positive, optimistic, happy book. And what struck me is how often little H is smiling.
That's right.
The book. There aren't many where he's looking a bit upset or a bit down or a bit confused. Most of the time, like when he's on the bike or with the VIP, he's got a big smile on his face, which is lovely to see.
Yeah, that's right, and that is very much how I see Harrison. I mean, I have no doubt there are some very demanding, challenging times with what he's facing. But ultimately, I mean, he was very fortunate. He actually had been in mainstream education up until probably 2 years ago, but he got to the point where I think he was beginning to feel a bit isolated from school trips and so on. And he was very lucky, he got a place at a specialist school not too far from home. So now, and I think it's really enriched his life. And he is, when I see him, he's a happy little boy, and he's got an amazing life. Yeah.
No, that's lovely. That comes across. And what does he make of the book?
I think he enjoyed it. Well, when I first published it, I had some lovely publicity pictures with him and his dad holding the book. And I mean, he's obviously a bit old for it, of course. Yes. But no, I think he very much enjoyed it, and very much can see, I'm sure what the reason for my doing it, and
And how much do you know how much money you've raised with it so far?
Not as much as I'd like to, because obviously per copy you just don't get much, do you? once the sort of the various cuts have been taken. But I think we're up to about £250 now, something like that. So, but sales are trickling in. Yeah. It would be lovely to get some more. But what half my problem was, I published right in the middle of the pandemic. So in sort of November 2020, so I couldn't get out to promote it. I couldn't go to schools. I couldn't visit a local bookshop. All of those things, which I'm hoping there'll be ongoing. Be more opportunity to do that. And actually, I did some pre-recorded readings of that book and also my new book, which I just published last week. And that visited a primary school in the UK. About 2 weeks ago now, and and I've had a lovely number of sales from that. So
that's nice.
Yeah, which is brilliant. And I hear it went down a storm as well. Went down very well, and the teachers enjoyed doing lots of activities around the story.
So you can do remote during pandemics and issues and travelling and everything. You can do remote school visits, but also you're happy to go into schools when you can, to go into schools and talk.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd love to do that, and now I've got 2 books. I feel I've actually got more to offer as well, which is nice.
Yeah. What's the title of your second book?
So my new book is called Dogs Do Look Like You.
Yeah, okay.
And that has a lovely link in to. It's got a hidden little H-Dog on every page for children to find. So there's a nice link across. It's not part of the series, but there's a nice link across, which I'm very much hoping people might retrospectively go back and buy the first book if they then enjoy the second book.
Yeah. No, that's nice. It was good to cross-reference in that way. Very good, very astute.
Indeed.
So how can people get hold of you then, Victoria?
So I'm my actual name on Instagram and social media is Bongtree Books. So I'm not, my website is Victoria Smith Children's Books .com, but on all social media I'm Bongtree Books, and the reason for that is I think my mum instilled an amazing love of children's literature in me from a young age. I read all the Janet and Alan Alberg books, your Peepers, your Each Peach Pear Plums, Funny Bones. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
They were brilliant, weren't they? And Edward Lear, the courtship of the Yonghy Bonghy Beau, which I used to love, and the Alan,
the Slidey Toad, did Guy and Gibble in the Mode and all that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely brilliant, weren't they? And the Crangle Wangle's Hat. I don't know. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay.
Absolutely.
You're right back to my love of words, starting with those.
Yeah. I mean, just brilliant books, weren't they? And sort of, so I love all the made up words in them as well. So that really, I think that instilled a love. And in both the Yonghy Bonghy Beau and in the Owl and the Pussycat are bong trees. So
okay.
That's why I'm bong tree books. It's nothing to do with illegal substances.
Yes, it's not bong pipe. It's a tree, not a pipe. Come on, focus.
No link.
And you've also got on the back of the book, you've got the reference to harrisonfund.com.
That's right, yes. So what I probably didn't mention actually was 100% of profit from book sales of Big H and Little H Dog are being donated across to Harrison's Fund. It's a lovely thing that I'm able to do. As soon as I get a certain amount of sales, I then pay across and donate those profits to Harrison's Fund.
No, that's nice. There's one other thing that comes through strongly in the book as well, and as a father, it's the strength and the power and the fighting of Big H, Alex, in real life. So just kudos to Alex for that fight that he's put up for his son as well. That's a very powerful story within the story, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, I 100% agree with that it's been a very difficult journey, and the way he's stepped up and achieved what he's achieved is quite inspirational. It's astounding, really. And again, if anyone wants to visit harrisonsfund.com, some incredible charity work going on there. The key distinction really with Harrison's Fund is they plough money into research that's going directly into clinical trials. So they're looking to plough the money into the hands of the world's best scientists, ultimately, to try and make a difference.
Okay, well, the more book sales, the better. Hopefully this being part of this will help. So Victoria and Big H and Little H Dog, thank you very much and good luck with all your plans. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.